A single dad went to a wedding alone. Suddenly, his neighbor shouted, "Look at me." The moment he stepped into the wedding hall alone, carrying the invisible weight of years he never spoke about, something inside him quietly cracked. The lights were warm, laughter echoed like a language he had almost forgotten, and everywhere he looked there were couples holding hands, families posing for photos, people belonging somewhere. He adjusted his wrinkled jacket, took a slow breath, and told himself he was strong enough to get through one evening. He had survived worse, but he had no idea that before the night ended, one unexpected voice would change the direction of his life forever. Before the story unfolds any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when people show up for each other, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. He was a single father long before he learned how to be one. Life had not given him time to prepare, only responsibilities to carry. His wife had passed away suddenly years ago, leaving him with a small child, unanswered questions, and a grief so heavy it settled into his bones. Since then, his world had shrunk into routines. Morning lunches packed in silence, school drop-offs filled with forced smiles, late nights folding laundry while exhaustion pressed against his chest. Love became something he poured into his child and nowhere else. Weddings were reminders of what he had lost, and yet here he was, attending one out of obligation, standing alone near the back of the hall like a guest who didn't quite belong. The wedding was for a distant cousin he barely spoke to anymore, but family expectations had a way of dragging him out of hiding. He had almost declined the invitation, imagining the pitying looks, the awkward questions, the way people would tilt their heads when they learned he was still alone. In the end, he came for one reason only, to prove to himself that he could still show up, even when it hurt. He planned to stay for a short while, offer polite congratulations, and leave before the slow dances began. As he moved through the hall, memories clung to him. The last wedding he attended with his wife. The way she laughed too loudly. The way she squeezed his hand during the vows. The promise they made, believing time would always be generous. Now, standing under soft lights with music drifting through the air, that promise felt like a fragile echo. He felt old in a way that had nothing to do with age. People around him smiled politely, but no one lingered. Single men at weddings often made people uncomfortable, as if solitude were contagious. He took a seat at a table near the edge of the room, sipping water and watching life happen without him. He told himself this was fine. He had grown used to being invisible. What he didn't know was that someone had been watching him too. She was his neighbor, though he barely noticed her most days. She lived 2 houses down, always passing by with groceries, books tucked under her arm, hair tied back like she was always in the middle of something important. They exchanged nods, occasional greetings, nothing more. He knew little about her except that she lived alone and had moved in a few years after his wife passed away. Their lives ran parallel, never crossing in any meaningful way. She hadn't planned to come to the wedding either. She was a last-minute guest, a friend of the bride, dragged along because she didn't like attending events alone. But when she saw him standing awkwardly near the entrance earlier, something stirred inside her. She recognized that posture, the careful distance, the way he seemed present in body but elsewhere in spirit. She had seen it before, in herself, after losses she never spoke of. As the evening progressed, laughter grew louder, music softened, and couples drifted toward the dance floor. He remained seated, fingers intertwined, eyes unfocused. That was when it happened. In a moment that cut through the noise and politeness of the room, she stood up and called out to him, her voice clear and unshaken, telling him to look at her. Heads turned. Conversations paused. For the first time that night, all eyes landed on him. His heart pounded as he looked up, confused, almost embarrassed. But when his eyes met hers, something unexpected happened. She wasn't smiling out of pity or curiosity. She was standing tall, steady, with a look that held both courage and kindness. She wasn't asking him to be someone else. She was simply asking him to see her. That single moment disrupted the quiet walls he had built around himself. She walked toward him slowly, not rushing, not performing. The room seemed to fade as she reached his table. Without making a scene, she pulled out a chair and sat beside him, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. No explanations. No apologies. Just presence. People eventually returned to their conversations, but something fundamental had shifted. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was intruding on happiness. He felt invited into it. They didn't need words right away. The silence between them was comfortable, rare, and honest. He noticed small things he hadn't paid attention to before. The calm way she held herself. The faint nervousness in her hands. The way she glanced around, making sure he was okay before focusing on anything else. It was a quiet act of care, and it unsettled him more than any grand gesture could have. Over the next hour, they talked about ordinary things. Neighborhood frustrations, traffic, food that was better than expected. But beneath the surface, something deeper was happening. He found himself laughing without forcing it. The tightness in his chest loosened. He spoke about his child without fear of the conversation ending awkwardly. She listened, truly listened, not as someone waiting for her turn to speak, but as someone who understood the cost of love and loss. She shared parts of her story too, carefully, honestly. She had loved deeply once and lost just as deeply. She had learned how to survive alone, how to fill her days with purpose while keeping her heart guarded. She wasn't searching for someone to complete her. She was simply open to connection when it appeared. As the night continued, he realized something that scared him more than loneliness ever had. He realized he had closed himself off not because he was broken, but because he was afraid of breaking again. Sitting there beside her, fear still present but no longer paralyzing, he understood that healing didn't mean forgetting the past. It meant allowing the future to exist alongside it. When the final song played and guests began to leave, he felt a strange reluctance. Not desperation, not longing, but a gentle wish for the night not to end. They walked out together, the cool air grounding them. Outside the hall, under the quiet sky, life felt simpler, softer. They didn't make promises. They didn't rush into anything. They exchanged a look that acknowledged what had passed between them, something fragile and real. Sometimes, the most meaningful connections don't announce themselves loudly. They arrive quietly and wait to see if you're brave enough to notice. In the days that followed, small changes began to ripple through his life. He found himself smiling more easily. He paid attention to the world around him. He noticed when the sun hit the kitchen window. Just right. He laughed with his child more freely, less weighed down by the fear of loss. He hadn't fallen in love overnight, but something just as important had happened. He had opened a door he thought was permanently closed. Their interactions as neighbors shifted naturally. Shared cups of coffee on the porch. Conversations that drifted from light to meaningful without effort. His child warmed to her in a way that surprised him, sensing safety where adults often hesitate. Watching them together stirred emotions he had buried for years, a blend of hope and gratitude that left him quietly overwhelmed. He realized that love doesn't always arrive as fireworks and certainty. Sometimes it comes as a steady presence, a voice that calls you out of the shadows, a reminder that you are still seen. Just before this story ends, I want to ask you something from the heart. Please take a moment right now to comment below with the words, "I believe in second chances." Your comment may seem small, but it can mean everything to someone reading it who feels alone today. As time passed, the memory of that wedding remained vivid in his mind. Not because of the music or the celebration, but because of the moment someone chose to see him when he had almost disappeared into himself. That moment became a quiet anchor, a reminder that even after deep loss, life can surprise you in the gentlest ways. He learned that being strong didn't mean standing alone forever. It meant having the courage to let someone stand beside you. He learned that love doesn't replace what was lost, but it can grow around it, honoring the past while shaping something new. And if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of your own struggles, your own missed chances, or the quiet hope you're still holding onto, please like this video, share it, and leave a heartfelt comment. Your engagement helps these stories reach others who need them, and it reminds us all that we are not as alone as we sometimes feel. Because sometimes, all it takes to change a life is one unexpected voice in a crowded room, calling out and reminding you to look up.